Hey, welcome to another episode of Your Faith and Health Community. I'm your host, Pastor Jackie Jackson, and as always, on behalf of myself and our producer, Anita Alexander, we want to thank you very much for taking out time to spend with us. We hope that, as always, or hopefully always, information we give will be life-changing and will help improve the quality of life. Now, you know, before I start, I'm going to mention healthcare. I'm going to mention it until everybody in this country has healthcare. If you have not enrolled and you know that open enrollment ended in December, it's coming back around. We're in September now, so we're looking at next month, November. If all goes well, we should go back into open enrollment. That's going into the marketplace to get your health care. If you just recently, though, had a life-changing event, you lost your job, you started a new job, you recently got married, or you got divorced, had a baby, if you did, congratulations. You're just coming back into the system from a correctional institution, or you're just moving into the state of Ohio. That's a life-changing event, and that qualifies you to apply for health care through the marketplace now without waiting on open enrollment. But the thing to remember is you only have 60 days from the date of your life-changing event in order to enroll in marketplace. Now, if you're single, and you're making an income of $16,223 or less a year, that makes you eligible for Medicaid. The thing about Medicaid is there is no open or closed enrollment. You can apply for Medicaid year round. And this is what's important, and you may not know this. If you are a family of four and your combined income is $42,500, right around there a year, that actually makes your family eligible for Medicaid. You can't go into the marketplace. And the good thing about Medicaid, it covers dental, health, vision, doctor's office, prescriptions. It covers everything. So if you are not insured, it does not make sense not to go either to the marketplace, again, if you had a life-changing event recently. If not, get prepared for November. If you qualify, enroll in Medicaid. I'm gonna come off of that. We're getting close. Then I'm just gonna go really crazy talking about it. But that part is there. Get enrolled, please. I also want to mention, and even take a moment of silence for the ones who lost their life in the Fifth Third shooting last Thursday here in Cincinnati. Let's just take a moment of silence for that. Okay, listen, gun violence is becoming a public health crisis around the country. If you're not aware, 96 people a day are killed due to gun violence. That's 96 people, 365 days a year. If that's not a public health crisis, I'm not sure what is. Look, I'm honored to have team members here as a part of the City of Cincinnati Department of Human Relations, Community Outreach Advocates. And I have them start with the lady first. We have Valerie Dow, who is the district coordinator for District 3 South. We've had her on before. She is a resource expert. And then to my left, we have Pastor Peterson Mingo, who is the program director. So basically, he's our boss. He's the one that coordinates all of our work. And you probably know Pastor Mingo from a number of different things. Christ Temple, which is located out in Evanston on Durrell. Is it Durrell Street? On Durrell Avenue. So you've probably seen both of them on the news at some point trying to help families who have been hit with gun violence or the community. So I want to welcome you guys to the show. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
So what I want to do is, and I'm going to come back to you, Val, I want to start first with the history of the Community Outreach Advocates. And the understanding is actually the initial name wasn't the Community Outreach Advocates, it was the
Youth Street Worker Program.
And when did this whole concept start?
Okay, back in 2002, after the civil unrest in 2001, in parts of 2002, there was an organization formed called Cincinnati Can. Cincinnati Can was formed to basically find ways to engage youth and provide them opportunities to make them basically, future pillars of our society. And so they came up with an idea called the Cincinnati Youth Street Worker Program. They sent for a guy by the name of Dr. Kennedy from Boston. He had basically been the author of what they call the Boston Miracle with the Street Worker Program in Boston. And so with that program, we began to engage young men and young women in the city of Cincinnati. We started out with 3 street workers, that's what we're called in. Avondale wasn't even on the map that much as far as being one of the places they were concerned about. They were concerned more about Evanston, Walnut Hills, and Madisonville as far as violence, in those days. And so after they formed the program, they went about looking for individuals who basically had connections on the street, who worked with youth, who were proven to be concerned about the youth, and who had something to offer, maybe even just as a mentor, a tutor, or even a coach. And so they began to hold interviews. Stan Ross, who's basically the manager of the SERVE program, Cincinnati Initiative to Reduce Violence, he was the program manager. He called me in, we interviewed, and I was the first person he hired around 19th of August, 2004. By the end of the year, we had 5 more workers, and in the next year to come, 2 more came on. We went to Chicago to look at programs up there to see what they were doing. Violence is something, as you said, it's a plague, especially gun violence. And we have to find ways to remedy it. We have to find ways to have people to participate in their own rescue. And so we went to Chicago to look at those programs. We came back, we fine-tuned it, and then in 2007, it morphed into basically the SERVE program, Cincinnati Initiative to Reduce Violence. Our focus was not any longer just primarily on youth ages 16 and 34. It was basically on all of those who were at risk, all of those who maybe had contact with law enforcement and maybe they had done some time in the penitentiary. And our main focus was helping them get jobs, housing, education, and health care. And so that's where we stand now. We're still working that program. At present, we have around 80 clients that we deal with on a daily and even monthly and hourly basis, trying to help them navigate through the things they need to get done, basically to take care of their needs in a legal manner. Yeah.
Okay. So there's also a process, and I mentioned it kind of in the beginning, that the outreach team is in the community when there is a shooting or a homicide, and the purpose of that is to do what?
Basically, to make sure accurate information is handed out. If someone is shot in the city of Cincinnati, we get a text and we get a call. We're told the location, the situation, what if a homicide. If it's a homicide, we rush to the scene where we hope we can engage with family members as they occur, that they can get some accurate information and basically even to assist them because if you're ever at one of these scenes, you see that they do need help. We do our best to assist them in funeral arrangements later. If they don't have a place to have their funeral, if they're not a member of a church, we try to find a church that will. If they don't have a pastor, we assist them in getting a pastor to do the eulogy. And so at the shootings, our main function is to basically engage with individuals who might show up, civilian population, mothers, fathers, children, whoever might get there and are concerned about what's going on in their neighborhood. Sometimes the police officers will ask us to assist certain members who might be going through something at the time. They'll point out, they'll tell us the need. If the person is not deceased, then we almost immediately go to the hospital where we can render services to the family there. The program right now is growing, the need is growing, and we need more people than we have. We have 8 full-time, 4 part-time, and we definitely need more because the need is there. There are times when there's multiple shootings on a particular day or evening when we're stretched so thin that we hardly have the people to attend certain things and be at certain places at the time we need to be there. And so right now, The program is vibrant, it's alive. We're doing basically everything we believe we should do, but we do need more people. We need more resources in order to put more boots on the ground.
And so with that, when we're looking at that process, like you said, they're there to assist the families, to assist the community. And we've all seen at times where there are family members who, and understandably so, are very distraught. Oh, yes. And so there's a special attention that's needed. You know, oftentimes, because as you know, I'm a fellow for Everytown for Gun Safety as a survivor fellow. And when we've had talks, like we were in Atlanta this past August, talking about victims of gun violence and the things that take place. One of the things that people have a tendency to forget about, right? It happens today, someone's shot or they lose a loved one. Then tomorrow something else happens, or the next day, and they're still in their crisis, but everybody else has a tendency to move on. Yeah. And that's where the outreach team comes in terms of the resources that are needed. And so Valerie, I know that, I mean, obviously I know this, but for people to know, that's one of the main focus or areas where you come in and helping individuals with the resources pass the crisis. It's kind of like a funeral, you know, up to the funeral, everyone's calling you, they're dropping off chicken and cake, but the day of the funeral, after that, the phone stops ringing, people stop knocking at your door. You come in and work with victims or the families of victims with different type resources that they may need. And you do more than just where there's the victim of the family. But right now, talking about that, so talk a little bit about what that looks like when you step in. And one particular thing I can think of, without giving a name or a location, where someone actually needed to move because of the situation. But just give us an idea of what stepping in with resources means.
So not only did one person need to move, two people needed to move. And one of the things that I did was connect with the victim's advocate at the Cincinnati Police Department, because they're able to provide Section 8 vouchers for anyone who have experienced gun violence or witnessed gun violence or homicide. And the goal is to protect the family. And so in working with that family, what I found out, not only did they needed to relocate, but there was a lot of medical issues with the mother, the son, and the kids, and in connecting them with the resources that are available to them, such as Children's Hospital and a Lighthouse Youth Services. That's what I had to do for that family.
So it's kind of like being, you know, because we all have different things that we do on the team. But when you look at the resources, and I know as well as yourself, Pastor Mingo, because I've sat and watched and listened to you try to get people in housing or trying to get different things available. But it's almost like being a conductor of a symphony when you're trying to do, because we don't literally have resources in our office. We don't have keys to apartments. We don't have medical. We don't have food or clothes or furniture. But it's being able to conduct or direct individuals to these different agencies and organizations. But what becomes real important is knowing, based on their situation, and this is, I've had an opportunity to sit and listen to you based on someone giving you their situation, that I see your head, your wheels start turning and you start going, okay, you need to go see this person, as opposed to maybe 5 other organizations that do the same thing. And because I know we're going to continue after this particular show with you on resources, so I don't want you to jump all the way in there and take everything away. But what is, just give a small idea, what is the process in your mind when you're conducting this on how or who to send down what avenue for what they need?
I think it's more relationships. I think throughout the years and building relationships with individuals and organizations, instead of them, for me, when I do a referral, I like to do a warm handoff. And what the warm handoff is, I'm connecting you to an individual. not just the front desk where you sit down and you may or may not get in to see whoever it is you need to see. It's kind of like some instant gratification. You know, you tell me what your need is, and here's the resource.
Okay. So it's going in and
Yeah.
pulling, like you said, relationship. Because relationship gets you in the door
That's
a
right.
lot better than just knowing to say St. Vincent de Paul. Because
Yeah.
then you're sending someone to the very front door and the very front process.
Yes.
So when you have a phone number or individual that you could pick up and call and say, hey, Jenny or Mary or Tom, this
Right.
is so-and-so, I have a person here.
Yes.
It makes a big difference. I want to mention Pastor Mingo because I know you deal with a lot of people going to court.
Oh, yeah.
And dealing with the judges and the prosecutors and things of that nature, which in sense is a resource or trying to navigate the court system, which isn't always the easiest thing in the world to do. So can you just talk a little bit about what you're giving to our clients, or to the particular clients that you would have that's dealing with the court system?
We have clients who basically made mistakes in the past, and sometimes they get a little bit off track. And what we do is try to get them back on track. We try to be able to explain to the judge their complete situation. We try to mitigate things for them in a manner where the judge will look and say, that person can be saved, they can be helped. He made a mistake, we're not going to slam him, we're not going to lock him up. Pastor Mingo, what do you think we need to do? Well, he needs housing. We're working on getting this individual housing. If he had housing, they wouldn't pick him up as a vagrant. If he had housing, he wouldn't be loitered in a lot of places. And so we're working on getting him housing. So the judge will probably say, okay, we're going to basically give him a continuance to such and such date, come back and we'll find out where he stands. Now, we built relationships with quite a few judges and prosecutors, and they know our credibility. They know what we do, how sincere we are at what we do, and that we're doing it basically not for self, accreditation or anything, but to basically help somebody else. And they like the way we do things. No judge really wants to lock up anyone. What he wants to do is see that person make a change in their life. And with the right assistance, then it's very possible. And so what we do is try to find avenues where they can go into, where they can basically begin to do some things that are better than what they've been done before. And hopefully by the time that we have them fully inside of our program, they've made a decision that this is what they want, that they're tired of the street life, that they're tired of living day by day from hand to mouth, and that they want to make a change in their life, not only for themselves, but quite a few of them have families that depend on them, would love for them to get back in the seat where they were the leader of that family, but basically fell out because of some misfortune or some mistake in the past. And so we try to get the families back together also. There's nothing like a family setting to give somebody confidence, especially if they got the family supporting them. And so a lot of the things we do is bringing the family unit back together for support of that individual who may be slipping, falling, but then family needs to be there to assist us as we pick him up, because when they leave us, they're going to be dealing with family on a daily basis. The court system, I've said before, they know that we're credible. They know that we go all out to do what we can to stop the violence, especially gun violence. We attend every funeral of a homicide victim in Cincinnati to offer the family solace. We basically attend every vigil. We help organize the vigils. And we do what we can on follow-up with the family. We just don't drop them off. And you had mentioned a little while ago, Jackie, that sometimes after the funeral, the phone calls stop, the cars have been read so often, and then they're left there alone, to grieve and basically to try to reconcile themselves to the fact that their loved ones won't be coming back. Well, we step in and try to basically navigate them through that. We offer the grief counseling. We have connections where they can go to get some assistance during that process. And at the same time, we're trying to help other members of their family who are also grieving, and there may be somebody else in the family who needs a job, another ex-felon or whatever. And so all of that's combined, and it's mind-boggling when you really think of all we do. But there's a great need for it, and we're dedicated to what we do.
And I think that's good because it kind of talked about some of the things, like I know people in my family or people I know, and then some people that I'll see that I've never met are like, hey, I think I saw you on television. You deal with the people that deal with the shot people or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that in some sense, that's what, well, I mean, that may be what we're the most visible for, but there are so many other facets of what we do, and I don't think a lot of people actually realize the involvement, which is why I wanted to talk about you, Valerie, with the resources, getting them out there and helping families, let's just say beyond the spotlight.
Yes.
You know, if there's a homicide or a shooting and we see the news is there and they're reporting and there are the cameras, after the cameras shut down, there is a life beyond the cameras and beyond that crime scene. And helping people with resources, especially like you mentioned, somebody sees something, something's going on, and they need to move from there. Well, unless you just have this really great bank account, picking up and moving is not all that simple.
Yes.
So being able to help. I want to ask this question. I'm going to ask you the same thing, Pastor Mingo, but I want to ask you first. Why do you do this work? Because obviously you could go do some other work. Why do you do this particular thing?
I do this, this is my way of giving back. You know, I feel like I was one of those individuals that we are working with now, and God saw fit to dust me off and to set me on a different path. And my goal is to just give back. Every day I wake up and I just say, God, what is my assignment? And that's it.
Why do you do this, Pastor Mingo?
Because there's a need, and it's not just a job, it's a ministry. I've lost 4 brothers to gun violence. My wife has lost her only brother to gun violence. 2 nephews who I helped raise have been victims of gun violence. A niece that we assisted, while she was growing up, has also been a homicide victim. And so it's something basically that we didn't fall into, it fell into us. And so I do the work because of the need, and because I know what goes on in situations like that. My eldest brother was killed when I was 9 years old here in Cincinnati. And as you mentioned, people go their way after the funerals and whatever. But no one came by the house after the funeral. The pastor never stopped back after the funeral. My mother going through the grieving process turned to alcohol. She had diabetes and led to her early death. She was 44 years old, my birth mother was, when she died. And so there's definitely a need, because you never know what that person's going through. They might say they're okay, and that's the one thing people have a habit of asking, are you okay, are you okay? People get tired of hearing somebody asking, are you okay? They just need you to be there sometimes. They'll let you know if they're okay. They'll tell you, maybe by their actions, they'll show you what's going on with them. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just sit there and be with them. Not do a whole lot of talking, not giving them all kinds of advice, not acting like you're an authority on this or that or whatever, but just being there, because they might need just to feel somebody's presence. They've suffered a loss, and right now they're trying to figure out, what's my next step? Where do I go from here? How do I fill this void in my life? Because that person's not coming back. And so I do my best to offer whatever assistance I can, whether it's conversation, or whether it's just sitting there watching TV with them, or helping to arrange a funeral and burial.
Okay. Because I know we're running out of time, I want to make sure, too, that we mention the rest of the team, because they're doing some awesome work. We have Deron Hunter, who works a lot with youth. He takes busloads of kids to different colleges that may not get a chance to go on a college tour. Some of these kids have never left the city of Cincinnati. Some not all that far out of the communities that they live in. We have Steve Sherman, who works as well with youth, who's in District 4. And to mention that Deron Hunter is the coordinator for District 1. Steve Sherman in District 4, working with youth, does a lot of work is it called Dawn, at Dawn School. We have Tony Hill, who's Elder Tony Hill actually, who does a lot of work at, 2020, who's the district coordinator for District 2. and we have Rashid Muhammad
Rashid
Ali, and he is the district coordinator for District 5, does a lot of work through Winton Terrace and some areas in Westwood, which is where the mosque is, who also has a trauma piece, that program that they're working on. We did a training last week and going back again next week for a training, which you'll hear more about. We had him on the show and he kind of briefly talked about it, but you're going to hear more about it because it's a very important piece. Maybe because I'm getting old, so my mind just kind of flips a little bit. We have Victor Velez, who is he's the numbers person, so to speak, does all the admin, makes sure all the numbers and the statistics fits well so that when it goes to the city. We have Derek Rogers, who is one of the advocates. And one of the great things about Derek, he talks a lot to a lot of the young men and women on the street about being business owners, getting into things like construction, very knowledgeable even on setting up businesses and corporations, which is something good for people because especially if your life has gotten to a point or you've done things, we've made decisions that may be harder for us to move forward. Traditionally, he's showing you ways that you can be a business owner, have your own business, and then not even be in a position where someone can say, no, we won't hire you, which is awesome because that's where the power actually is. We have another Derek, which is Derek Smith, who works a lot, I think more with Steve in District 4. Mm-hmm. We have Telly Wimbush, who is a coach. He coaches football. He's an outreach advocate, but coaches football, so has a lot of contact with youth. Let me see, am I forgetting anyone? Help me out. We have Britton Carter, who also has a show as well. I think it's the new one. I think the show is called, where he has a cable show that's dealing with things that are going on in the community, but he's an awesome outreach advocate. Pastor Mingo already mentioned Stan Ross. So we have an awesome team, and we are out of time, but I want to mention this. If you've had any contact with the community outreach advocates, if we've done anything in your life, have stepped in, been there at a situation, maybe it was a shooting or maybe it was a homicide, and we were able to assist you. Maybe you've had contact with Val or Pastor Mingo where they were able to really work some resources that were able to help you or your family, or you've just seen us out on the street. Listen, give the city a holler. Let them know that, hey, the outreach team has been instrumental in my life or in my family's life, or the work that they do are very important. We have some information here, and you can't see it that well, but I just wanted to show it up. And this is a brochure that talks about the community outreach advocate, and it gives you an idea of what things are available to help you. Let the city know that, hey, they have been a very good inspiration or help in our life. It's important for people to know that we're helping you and that you are helping us. And we thank you very much. Listen, it's time for me to get out of here. Just want to mention again, if you have not enrolled in health care, what are you waiting for? Huh? Don't you know that one emergency room visit, depending on how serious it is, could break your bank account. If you had to stay in the hospital for a week, you could be talking about $50, $60, $70, $80, $100,000. Now, if you've got that much money that you don't care, forward it to me, Pastor Jackie Jackson, your Faith and Health community. I'll help you get rid of it. But for real, get enrolled in health care. You see a member of the outreach team out in the community, it doesn't have to be something involving you. Go up and say, hey, all right? Listen, as always, stay faithful, stay healthy.